Hello and welcome to Cycles of Time, your weekly guide to what's happening on Earth as we make our revolutionary journey around the sun. For time immemorial, our human ancestors have created myths and meanings to help us adapt and thrive as seasons change. Join me each week to explore the intersections of these ancient cycles, from the indigenous medicine wheel to the pagan wheel of the year, the Babylonian and Greek zodiac to the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is the Cycles of Time podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to Cycles of Time. This is an episode all about Libra season 2025, where we're going to dive into the season of the scales of justice through the lenses of the zodiac, human design, the I Ching, the medicine wheel, and beyond. So, happy equinox, everyone. We have made it through the last eclipse of 2025. Definitely not unscathed, but hopefully wiser and lighter on our feet than we were before eclipse season. This year's eclipses happened on the Pisces and Virgo axis, which is a polarity of water and earth. We have the North Node in Pisces now, which is collectively nudging us to surrender and to flush out Virgo's shadows of perfectionism and overanalysis. And for me, surrendering my grip on what I can't control while focusing positive energy into what I can was a really big focus for me during this past season. I'm curious if that was a theme for you as well, surrendering the grip. I feel like in surrendering, we have to remember that surrender is not apathy, surrender is not collapse, and surrender is not passive, surrender is not giving up. But surrender is just the acknowledgement of the passing of time and the inevitability of change, and the fact that we're part of something much larger than ourselves. Surrender is releasing our grip on clinging on to how things were, and also on our mental framework of how things should have been. Surrender is being present in the moment and looking for opportunities to move into the future with courage and grace. I kept seeing an image of a river, like a raging, flowing river going past during this eclipse season, and thinking about how when a river is flowing past, we cannot hold on to the banks because you'll get pulled in and taken under by the water that's flowing past. I feel like when that's happening, when this much change is happening at any given moment, we have to swim out to the middle of the river and float on our backs out there where it's a little calmer and catch a breath. And then look around to see who else is out there with us and talk to them and swim with them and build something new with them. So that was really just, the visual that kept coming through for my eclipse season. And it's always a good idea to pay attention to who and what we are leaving behind, and also what is entering our lives during eclipse season. It's really important things that happen during these pivotal alignments of the sun, moon, and earth. So during this eclipse season, did a relationship come to an end for you over the past few weeks? Or did a subconscious pattern that's no longer serving you come into light and allow you to be conscious of it? Did you meet anyone who felt like soul family over the past couple of weeks? Take note of those things, do a little reflection and write them down, as those will be continued to be integrated into your experience over the next 6 months. The things that we let go of and the things that entered. For me, eclipse season brought in some really wonderful new unexpected friends and connections. I thought I was going into complete hermitude and just was feeling very, very, very like I wanted to be alone this summer and in my hermit cave. But I really did find that eclipse season, those 2 weeks season, really brought in a lot of unexpected connections that were wonderful. And as a Virgo sun and Virgo Mercury, Eclipse season also helped me release some deep-seated and definitely ancestrally karmic gripping around my value being linked to my output and the need to have to prove myself consistently with spreadsheets and facts and figures. I definitely felt an embodied sense of surrendering to the larger networks of energy that create my circumstances and a lot less shame and blame around what should have happened. I put air quotes around what should have happened because there isn't a what should have happened. I've been doing, as you know, a weekly forecast podcast. If you've been here for a while, you've known that I've been doing a Monday forecast for over a year and a half now, or just about a year and a half, actually, since spring equinox 2024. And the structure around that has been so wonderful in helping me learn and teach, both learn and teach at the same time, about the intersecting qualities of these polycultural wheels of the year that I study. But over the past couple of months, it's felt like a little bit more of an obligation of time with less direct insight channeling through than I used to have. And I've just been it's been felt more like an obligation, as much as I've loved this process. Over the past month or two, I've also been invited into some juicy and interesting projects that I need to create some spaciousness for. I'll be telling you all about them soon. But I've just been called to having more space to be able to think about what is emerging and play with what is emerging rather than having the obligation on a weekly basis of a podcast that takes me quite a long time to record and produce and write and transcribe and edit and all of the things. As much as I try to keep it simple, it's definitely um, something that I spend a lot of time on. And so I've decided, over the course of this shedding perfectionism of the Virgo eclipse, South Node eclipse season, I've decided to make a few changes to align with my current energy and to allow for the emergence of what wants to be birthed in its own divine timing. And there is plenty that wants to be birthed right now. I did send out an article on Substack, a email and a post on Substack about this change yesterday. That would be on Tuesday, September 23rd, and got a lot of really positive feedback from it. So thank you all who commented and reposted and just celebrated my change, this evolution of cycles of time. I definitely also got a few other private messages that were people being like, "Oh no, I loved that weekly forecast and it really set me straight for the week. Like, what am I going to do without that?" And I resonate with that too. Kind of knew that would happen, which is why I didn't want to let it go. But I had to trust my gut with this one. Virgo, my sun and Mercury is ruled by the gut, and I'm leaning into that kind of wisdom rather than the doubts and fears that I'm letting people down kind of wisdom right now. And so if you appreciated the weekly forecasts, don't worry, they're not going away. I'm going to be doing a weekly Substack post and maybe recording it as well if I can get it together to do a batch recording at the beginning of the season. So I've written about that in the post yesterday about the evolution of the podcast, and you can check that out on Substack at cyclesoftime.substack.com. Or I'll tell you a little bit more about my plan going forward here. And I do foresee myself going back to weekly forecasts. I loved the structure that it provided my life. Um, and I just at this pivotal moment of kind of back to school time, I just have a lot of things I'm working on and wasn't just liking the feeling of the obligation and the crunch for this current moment. So I'm giving myself permission to say, hey, it's back. Weekly forecasts are back after we play with this format for a little while as well. Instead of weekly forecasts going forward, though, for the next little while, I'm going to be recording a monthly overview at the beginning of each zodiac season. And that's going to be starting with this one on Libra, the scales of justice. We'll talk about the medicine wheel, the 5-element Taoist cycle, the pagan holy days, the zodiac elements and archetypes, and the human design gates of the season in storytelling form. And I'll also lay out the week by week themes that do correspond with the seasonal workbooks that paid subscribers to my Substack receive every month. And I also do have these workbooks for sale on my Etsy account at cosmicodyssey.com is my Etsy. And you can check that out if you'd like to get the workbook for Libra season ahead. It has somatic exercises and journaling prompts for each week related to the energies that we're in. It has a story of all of the human design gates of Libra season, talks about the elements, the history of the sign, the pagan holy days. It's a jam-packed, almost 50-page workbook that I put a lot of energy into for my paid subscribers, and it's also available to buy as a one-off for not very much, and it's a fun thing too. So if you were liking those weekly forecasts on cycles of time, getting one of these workbooks and printing it out and going through the weeks that way is helpful as well. So I'm looking forward to having a little bit more flexibility by doing just this singular monthly forecast. And I'll probably be bringing on some guests for these overviews as well, people who have birthdays or prominent placements in that zodiac sign for the season. So more conversation, more interdynamic kind of conversational quality to a podcast just sounded fun to me right now. And then midway through each season, I'm going to be doing a podcast episode for my new mini series, which is called Paradigm Shift 2025 to 2027. And I wrote an intro post to that on my Substack as well a couple weeks ago and got a really great response from it. And in that, I've been really intrigued at looking at the larger cycles, the bigger picture, the Pluto cycle, the Aries Neptune Saturn conjunction that's happening, the human design paradigm shift of 2027, the yuga cycles, looking at kind of how all of these bigger cycles or prophecies from various traditions kind of come together to talk about what feels like an incredibly pivotal time of on this planet. 2025 to 2027, change is not slowing down. And as I ground myself into the weeklies and I ground myself into these weekly energies, I want to continue doing that. But I'm also wanting to zoom out a little bit more and look at these bigger picture shifts and cycles that we're really facing in this moment of intensity on this planet. So those will be coming out kind of throughout the rest of the year. There'll be one per month and into 2026 and probably onward into 2027. There's plenty to write and talk about there. And so if you're someone that has some expertise in the 2027 shift in human design, if you're listening, or if you're interested in these larger astrological shifts and are an astrologer, I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to have more conversations. So reach out, Alison at astrosomatics.com. I would love to, just start a conversation about how we're feeling about these prophecies and these bigger shifts, these arrangements of outer planets that are in new formations where they haven't been before for thousands of years, perhaps. And so I would love to talk about that on the podcast and just have more spaciousness to bring in more conversations with people is really where I'm feeling called. So ultimately, there will be 2 podcasts a month. The initial forecast that will come out around the beginning of the zodiac season. This one's a little bit late for Libra season, a couple days, because I've just been in the midst of this transition and it always takes longer than I think it's going to transition from one way of doing things to another. But yeah, if you're interested in talking about the upcoming zodiac seasons, or if you are identified as that zodiac sign, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn are coming up, hit me up and I'd love to, put together a list of potential guests. And also, that midway through the month, the Paradigm Shift 2025 to 2027 series, just really excited to start to dig into that and give myself some time to do the research and conversations that will require. So, for all of you weekly listeners, everybody who's been tapping into cycles of time on a weekly basis for the last year and a half, don't worry. I'm still going to be writing on a weekly basis, just probably not recording. And sometimes I will record. I might be doing an art piece for each week or each gate that the sun transits through. I'm just wanting to leave it open and flexible, but I do feel like creativity is coming through, which is what's making it feel alive and less of an obligation. So I'm following that thread. Basically, instead of a weekly forecast that integrates all of these different cycles for the time being, I'm inspired to write a post about every human design gate or I Ching hexagram or gene key. They're all the same thing. They're the 64 in the mandala. I want to write a post about every one that the sun transits through, along with its corresponding earth gate, which is the sun's polarity across the wheel. I really feel like these times that we're living in right now are deeply asking us to understand and integrate polarities or else get swallowed up by them and get radicalized by them. And it's becoming really clear to me that integration and looking at polarities and finding a way to synthesize them is a personal love of mine, a personal mission of mine. So much of my work with the Wheel of the Year has been deepening into the realization that we live in a cycle. We live within a wheel, and there is no summer without winter, no fall without spring, no wet without dry, no dark without light, no hot without cold. The polarities, this binary polarities that make up the world, are beautiful, and the axis of integration between them is even more profound. It's where these deep epiphanies come from. And I think that we're really being asked to do more integration of polarities and divisive thought at this moment in time. So, the 32 polarities of energies on the human design mandala, that is the outer wheel on the cycles of time mandala, those give us insights into how to integrate our differences on a weekly basis. 64 gates in 32 polarities. And to me, that content just feels especially relevant right now and juicy for me. So I will be doing some kind of free-flowing writings about what it's like for these energies to be at odds with each other and what it feels like, as well as what it feels like when they're integrated. And there'll be time specific. I'm going to be releasing these posts. There's 6 human design gates or I Ching hexagrams per zodiac season. And so there'll be 6 of them coming out every 5.5 days or so. And I'll release them at the beginning of the transit, the sun's transit into that gate. And then for the next 5.5 days, it'll be time to consider and contemplate and sit with these polarities and see how they're showing up in your life. And so for me, that was just a way to focus in a little bit of energy on a frequent basis about how we can, there's plenty of resources for the astrology of the week, and with that month ahead forecast, you can still dive into what the astrology will be for the weeks ahead within that month. But I'm just wanting to lean a little more deeply into these beautiful polarities across the wheel of the human design gates, and I'll bring in information from the zodiac and from the medicine wheel and from the whooshing cycle and all of the modalities I've been working with, because they're related, and each of these gates are within a larger season. So that information will still be in there. And yeah, I'm excited to write about them and maybe do some guided meditations about these gate polarities from time to time. And so yeah, please consider continuing the journey along. As a paid subscriber on Substack, you do get access to a zodiac season guidebook and workshop, breathwork sessions once a month, and some more goodies as well, discounts on readings. So consider joining as a paid subscriber to show your support for my work and get access to these live workshops and PDFs and things like that. Um, It is really, really, again, a labor of love, and I appreciate so deeply each and every one of you who is out there listening or reading or just partaking in this work. It means so much to me, and it's kind of unbelievable. Sometimes I just hit 600 subscribers on Substack, which felt significant, and so I'm really stoked to have each and every one of you here. If this work does resonate with you, please consider sharing an episode or sharing or leaving a 5-star review or a comment. All of these things help me get more visibility and make it easier to just continue the work and continue to put energy into this labor of love. So thanks for being here on Cycles of Time. And without further ado, I'd love to jump into Libra season in the Wheel of the Year. I have my Cycles of Time mandala with all of the wheels of the year on the Substack, also always pinned to the top of my Instagram at Cycles of Time Podcast on Instagram. And so you can find this mandala. If you're new here, it is a mandala that integrates the medicine wheel, the 5-element Taoist whooshing cycle, the pagan wheel of the year, the zodiac, and the human design mandala, which is based on the Fuxi sequence of the I Ching. And these are cycles and wheels from all across the globe, various times and places that have all built deep relationships with the seasons, with the changes that happen on Earth across the course of the wheel of the year. And I've kind of put them all together to see how they align as far as our seasonal shifts are concerned and what's happening in our bodies and in our minds and in our souls as humans living on this earth within this larger solar system. So there's a little slice of the pie, a little pizza slice for Libra season that shows where Libra season falls within these other cycles. And today, that's what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about those 6 human design gates or I Ching hexagrams that fall within Libra season and the story arc of Libra the Scales as told by this series and sequence of energies. We'll talk about the pagan wheel of the year and Mabon, the fall equinox that we celebrated on September 22nd this year. And we'll talk about the elements within the medicine wheel and the 5-element whooshing wheel of the year, which are metal and water. And we'll get into some significances with the zodiac season Libra as far as it's related to the body and how what Libra is correlated with in the human body and the human life cycle. And so there's a bunch of stuff to talk about, really juicy stuff that I love to talk about when it comes to these zodiac seasons. And so let's dive in. First off, I want to talk about Libra, the constellation, and kind of my philosophy on Libra, that it is a time of year where we are descending into the underworld as the days get shorter and the nights get longer. It's that symbolism of descent. And I would say that the descent into the underworld spans from Virgo season to Libra season into Scorpio season. And this is kind of based on the constellation in the sky. And so I'll go ahead and say that Libra was not always its own sign. In the old skies, in Babylonian times, and early astrological traditions, Libra was seen as Libra, the constellation, had very faint stars. And so they were seen as the claws of the scorpion, the Scorpio constellation to the east, or the scales held by the Virgin, Virgo, to the west. In ancient Greece, the Libra constellation still wasn't fully considered a constellation. It was in Roman times when Libra became its own distinct constellation and sign. And so in these ancient times, the ancient Greeks called the Libra constellation Chele, which means claws, and the 2 brightest stars of Libra were commonly identified as the claws of the scorpion. And these stars of Libra, the two brightest stars, are still called by their Arabic names that are hard for me to pronounce, but I think it's Zubin el Shamali, and that's the northern claw, and Zubin el Genubi, which is the southern claw. So those Libra scales were the claws of the scorpion. And when we look at many renditions of Virgo, the archetype of Virgo is a maiden holding up the scales of justice. So to the other side of the Libra constellation is Virgo, and a lot of traditions see Virgo as a maiden cast to the sky, a pure star maiden, but that is focused on justice and holding up these scales of justice. So there is transition in between the three signs. And Libra as a constellation is quite dim. It's one of the dimmest in the sky in the zodiac, and so it's quite understated. And it sits between these brighter figures of the harvest goddess and the scorpion. Virgo, the harvest maiden, is one of the largest constellations in the sky, and Scorpio is very bright and very distinct. So in this way, as the only inanimate object in the zodiac, Libra is a threshold between more than, between these two distinct archetypes. And it balances the above world with the underworld with a sense of grace. It's this liminal space and this liminal time of year where we are shifting between longer days and shorter nights to longer nights and shorter days in the Northern Hemisphere. And that holds really immense significance. Libra is the place of the equinox, where light and dark stand equal before the year tips toward that descent into the underworld. So it is the beginning of Libra season is this critical moment of shifting seasons, shifting from light to dark. So the movement for Virgo into Libra into Scorpio season really traces an ancient underworld arc. Virgo is the sign of gathering and sifting the harvest, separating wheat from chaff. And Libra is the balance point in between that weighs what has to be carried forward and what has to be released. It's those scales of justice, and it really is ecologically when you look at the scales, it's kind of taking all of the harvest and making sure it's balanced out and weighed for preparation for the colder months ahead, as you have to store food and share food with others and decide who gets what. And so that Libra's definitely, in an ecological standpoint, this beginning of balancing out the fruits of the living half of the year. And then after Libra season, Scorpio is this composting sign that really goes into the underworld and claims what falls away and guides our souls deeper underground into transformation and into the shadow side of things and into that darker half of the year. So the scales of Libra in between Virgo and Scorpio, I really see as this place of integration, a place of finding pause, and finding relationality between the living and the dead, between the light and the dark, before we plunge into the darkness in earnest. So the stars of Libra might be dim, but the role of this season is pivotal, and it cannot be subsumed into one or the other. It is all about being in the middle, being in that balance point. And it really reminds us that there's an active practice of balance that is really the gateway of meaning within this descent into the darkness. And the scales are always moving a little bit up and down. You have to look closely to see the dimness of those stars of the Libra constellation, and that active looking and that active sense of feeling into something is what this season is all about as well. The balance point is not static, it's fleeting, and it has to be maintained with action. So Libra is a cardinal air sign, And the sun is passing through this Libra part of the sky, this zodiac sign of Libra from September 22nd to October 22nd. And this year, that is the dates. It's not always exactly the same, but around those dates. And Libra is all about the art of relationship, of finding harmony and balance, symmetry, the struggle and the active sense of living in right relationship. Libran people born during this season or who have strong Libra placements tend to seek beauty and justice and harmony in life, and also have to face that truth that equilibrium is rarely static, if ever. You have to keep moving to keep things balanced. I feel like this time of year, a lot is in motion. There's gusts of wind, there's leaves falling to the ground. There's a sense of motion before stillness of the darker time of year. And it's these subtle shifts in light, these subtle shifts in decaying processes that are slower than the sprouting up of spring and summer. But there's a certain corrective kind of subtle energy that feels alive this time of year. It's like almost like a crackling kind of energy that I find that I feel into when the light changes with the spring, with the equinox. So, yeah, it's kind of like a recalibration, I would say. Being a cardinal air sign, Libra to me evokes a brisk fall wind that blows dead leaves to the ground. Cardinal signs are initiatory signs, the beginning of a season. So, this is the beginning of fall in the northern hemisphere. And so I like to think about the modality and the element of each zodiac sign as it relates to an actual force of nature. And so I've done a map of each of the signs and their modalities and elements and how they map to the other ones. Like Gemini, for instance, is a mutable air sign. And so it's more of that a breeze, like a pollinating breeze that carries dandelion seeds between, different parts of the world on the wind. And it's this kind of more changing, mutable um, type of energy. And cardinal area is a little bit different. It's initiatory, right? And so for me, the brisk fall wind, the day of the equinox, and I stepped out into my backyard and there was a brisk fall wind knocking leaves down to the ground off of the trees, and it felt so on the nose. It was like, oh, there it is. The winds of change are here. But, yeah, when we think about that simple act of leaves falling to the ground, being blown to the ground by the changes of weather, the hot and cold air meeting and creating this wind, this cardinal air, you think about the leaves so recently being filled with color and life, so vibrant and green just a month ago. And now they find themselves changing quickly and on the ground and quickly breaking apart to become a part of something larger than themselves, which is the soil, the thing that is composted and composed of everything that has come before them. Like all of the other broken down leaves, they start to lose their individual integrity in this half of the year and become broken down into the soil. And when I look at the wheel of the year from an ecological standpoint, Aries season through Virgo season is a season of life where growth is happening, the sprout, the flower, the harvest, all of these things. And then we reach Libra season, and it's a time of returning to the earth. So the next several episodes of Cycles of Time, where we talk about the seasons as they change, Scorpio all the way to Pisces, it's a lot about the soil. I'm going to be talking a lot about soil and a lot about how the soil that life grows out of is such a beautiful metaphor for our emotional quality, for the quality of of life during this darker half of the year, where it's about merging with the other and breaking down our sense of individuality into the more transcendent and collective values and vibes that are happening during these winter months. So when I look at cardinal air, it's like the initiation of that process happening. So I love that. And I hope you love talking about soil as much as I do. I've learned a lot by thinking about these processes that are happening underground as well as above ground, right? It's a little harder to see what's happening beneath the surface of the earth in the wintertime, but it's equally as important to the beautiful sprouting and flowering and harvesting that happens during the living time of year. So, moving on, Libra season ushers in these first crisp winds of autumn and carries these qualities of cardinal air, which are movement and initiation and directionality. Aquarius later on in winter in February is fixed air, which is, I like to relate to the atmosphere, kind of a steadiness, a quality of like all of the air connecting all of the places on Earth, as Aquarius is a networked type of sign. And so it's fixed air being a kind of static atmospheric type air. And then mutable air is like I mentioned, Gemini, which scatters and pollinates. Here in Libra season, we have cardinal air, this gust that sets leaves in motion and the breath that initiates a conversation. So these are the types of qualities that are happening here that feel very, very relational, very deliberately relational. So cardinal air is a kind of quality that wants to start something, an agreement, a dialogue, a relationship. It has this energy of a fresh perspective, the ability to see multiple sides at once, and also this drive to put those perspectives into play. So, this zodiac season of Libra really carries momentum through relationships. The relationship of the living leaf with the ground that it will soon become a part of is like this meeting place of relationship. Relationships between people that have solidified or that are able to emerge after we find our sovereignty during Virgo season. Now it's time to make real relationships. And so the wind of Libra pushes us to make choices, find that balance point with people, reach across divides, and take steps towards harmony, towards living with others. Again, it's that leaves from the trees meeting the soil, meeting the ground to begin their integration into relationship with the past cycles of life. Um, so Libra's strength, I think, really lies in setting things into motion through words and invitations and gestures. And cardinal air, this quality really teaches us that, again, balance begins with movement, and that harmony, this sense of harmony, is not a static sense, but it's created when we choose to engage with the world around us. It is moving on from the individual, from our sovereignty, from our Leo, Aries, Taurus. There's a certain quality to these signs in the first half of the year from March through September that are more individual. And then we move into Libra season and onward we go into a more transpersonal time of year. So, in the body, I love to look at zodiac signs through the lens of the body and medical anthropology, medical astrology. I studied medical anthropology in school. So, that's why I said that slip. But medical astrology definitely looks at the human body and has correlations with each of the zodiac signs in the zodiac man. And it starts with Aries in the head and moves down to Pisces as the feet, and every other sign in order goes down the systems of the body. And so we are halfway through the year here, and Libra is halfway down the body. Libra rules the systems of balance and filtration in the body. This is the kidneys, that really are sorting pure from impure and maintaining a balance of delicate chemistry of the blood and regulating fluids and minerals in the body. So, kidneys, they look like scales. There's two of them on opposite sides of the body, and they are working kind of like scales work, maintaining that balance. So, in that way, they embody Libra's archetype of justice, filtering, deciding what's useful to keep and what needs to be released. And when our kidneys are taxed and maxed out, it often mirrors a life situation where choices feel muddied or relationships lack clarity. And when we have difficulty filtering out what is toxic, whether it's food or our emotions or our relationships, that can take its toll and take its toll on our kidneys. Another part of the body that's ruled by Libra is the adrenal glands, and those are right atop the kidneys, and they're acting. Adrenal glands, what they do is they produce hormones that govern stress response and vitality. So, when our adrenals are in balance, they provide steadiness and resilience. But when we have chronic stress or relational discord or tension, we can have adrenal fatigue arise. And this ties into Libra in the sense that there's this tendency within the archetype of Libra to overextend themselves, overextend beyond their boundaries and beyond their energy in the name of peacekeeping and holding harmony externally, making everything out in the world operate smoothly while their inner reserves are being quietly drained because that harmony is so important. We Libra type people can forget about ourselves within the beautiful, delicate balance of life. And as a Libra moon and Libra Pluto generation, I definitely relate to that, where the peacekeeping can oftentimes be at the expense of my individual self. It's like we've gone through this individual part of the year from Aries through Virgo, and then you jump into Libra energy, and it is like so much about relationship and harmony and balance that it's easy to forget oneself within that. And so that can cause adrenal fatigue. It can cause issues with our kidneys and our adrenal system. So something to keep in mind during Libra season. We also have part of the body, the lower back and the hips, this body's central hinge, this midway point through the body that really distributes movement evenly between left and right, our pelvis, and carries a weight of our whole body. And there's two halves to the pelvis as well, kind of supporting the whole body through this very balanced scale like imagery and structure. So, yeah, the hips, the lower back, the adrenal system, the kidneys, these are all things related to Libra. And they really teach us that health in these systems comes through recalibration, and responding gracefully to constant shifts in movement, being dynamic. And so, practices that restore symmetry, like yoga or Tai Chi or dance, kind of symmetrical, balanced types of practices, really do feed Libra's body, people with a lot of strong Libra placements. So, also emotional honesty, having a space to have honest conversations with people in relationship that can release hidden tensions is important for Libras and during Libra season. So it's kind of like how the kidneys flush toxins out, flushing out tensions through therapeutic conversations, as well as equilibrium type movements is important. So when Libra attends both inner and outer harmony, um, the kidneys flow smoothly, the adrenals recharge, and the back and hips can help support us with strength and ease. So that's Libra in the body. And then I also like to look at the human life cycle and how the zodiac signs are related to the life cycle. Again, starting with infancy, Aries is that infant, the baby lamb, the sprout of the ram's horns coming out of the earth in Aries season, and so that is infancy, and Aries is associated with the head, and so it's like the crowning of a baby coming out of during birth is related to that first initiation into the world. So that is Aries and the spring equinox. But here we have Libra across the wheel, the fall equinox. So correspondingly, Libra in the life cycle would be the relational years of midlife. And I would say I'm in Libra years now. I just turned 42 in September, and that is, seems like a midlife, pretty strong midlife point if I'm so lucky to live to 84. 84 is the 84 is the amount of years that it takes Uranus, the planet, to orbit the sun. So I am in my Uranus opposition years right now, where my natal Uranus is opposite Uranus in the sky. And that is pretty profound that's kind of it's longer than the average human life cycle. I believe the average human life cycle is 76 years worldwide, but I need to check on that. But it's in the late 70s. And so 84 is an older end of life cycle. But regardless of the specifics, midlife is represented by Libra. And midlife is this stage when partnership and balance and shared responsibility really take on a lot of importance. It's an era where we've established the self generally. We come to through all of these different trials and tribulations of self-actualization and personality and identifying with who it is that we are. And then once that happens, and once that's established, it's time to turn outward toward the other and seek relationality. We are a social species, us humans, and we need to find others, relationships, family, community. This time of life, which I'm really feeling into, is that it's a time when many of us are caring for aging parents and also caring for children, whether they're our own or someone else's. We're in this middle generation that is witnessing the emergence of a new generation and witnessing and savoring the wisdom of a generation that is getting towards that later stage of life. And for me, it's incredibly emotional. I did not expect it to be that emotional because I think in midlife you're also supposed to kind of hold it all together. But I find it very emotional to be in midlife. I look at my daughter, learning how to ride her bike and learning how to write and just becoming into her personhood. And I look at my parents as they experience some health issues and balance issues and things like that, and have a lot more, kind of memories of the past with nostalgia. And it just feels so tender being in this middle place. And so I think sometimes we can look at Libra and think about partnership or think about like romantic relationships or Librans being relational in the sense of someone along the same peer age group perhaps. But when I look at Libra now being in this Libra stage of life, I think about relating to the other almost like there's no choice because you are witnessing the sweet tenderness of like seeing the lifespan from the middle, seeing the beginning stages and seeing the end. And it brings up a lot. And I'll talk more about that in a minute, where in the medicine wheel, adulthood and the direction west in the Ojibwe medicine wheel that I study is associated with water and emotionality. And at first I was like, is adulthood emotional? I don't know. And now I'm like, 100% adulthood is so tender. This middle adulthood anyway. But in these years, yeah, these years of our like late 30s, early 40s, I'd say around this time, life's lessons are really focusing on compromise, on collaboration, on how we coexist with others. Libra is ruled by Venus, which is the planet of connection and love and what we value and relationality. And midlife is this time when the bonds of marriage and friendship and community really become defining. There's like more orientation. I used to be able to flit about a bit more in my earlier years because I just didn't have as many responsibilities to other people. And so once I realized that I'm responsible for the schooling of my children and being available for my parents and meeting other people that are in that same boat, the way that the constellations of community configure themselves is much more rich and complex than it was when I was a lone wolf soul entity, just drifting around the globe. So yeah, it's relational, relational, relational. And there's a lot of choices around this time of life around intimacy and co-parenting and partnership and collaboration that can be both challenging and fulfilling. So this chapter of life, this midlife Libra equinox chapter, really says, how do I balance my own identity with the needs of others? Where do I compromise? Where do I hold the line? And the scales of justice serve as a mirror during this time of life that reflect both the power and beauty and also the complexity of relationship. So, harmony here, this Libra word of harmony, really becomes a lived practice and not an ideal. So this phase of life really emphasizes again that true balance of Libra scales is dynamic and not static, and it requires being attuned to the present moment, being honest, and continually recalibrating based on what's alive in the moment. So interestingly enough, as I decided to recalibrate this project of Cycles of Time, I heard from several people that they were like, "Oh, I've also had a challenge letting go of the perfectionism of like wanting to keep going with something that didn't feel alive anymore." And many people told me that the fall equinox, Libra season, was the time that they also let go of certain projects and recalibrated what it is they were working on. So I think that's shows up in all of these different ways. So yeah, there's a gift in Libra season and Libra time of life to learn how to both stand in your own truth and also extend equal recognition to others and know that justice and love both are sustained through reciprocity. So it's a maturing time where selfhood is revealed in relationship. And this midlife time can be crisis oriented, or it can be really an opportunity to see the blossoming that happens when our sovereignty and our connection with others are held on those scales in an equal way. So, yeah, that's my deep dive into the Libra in the body and the life cycle and the elements and modality, and it all just I love looking at these pieces all together, and I'll be doing that every month. I also go deeper into it in my guidebook that you can find through becoming a Embody the Revolution paid member on Substack for $8 a month, or by the workbook on Etsy at cosmicodyssey.com is where you can find that. So that is a lot about Libra in the way I like to look at the wheel of the year through the zodiac. And then we'll look at Libra season through the polycultural wheel of the year, starting with the medicine wheel. Um, The medicine wheel is, like I mentioned a second ago, the direction west is Libra season, where the equinox is right in the middle of the western direction. And so it marks this place of the setting sun and endings and integration, the descendant in astrology. It's where light is meeting up with shadow and the scales are being weighed out as we enter and descend into the underworld. In the medicine wheel, like I mentioned, the West is associated with adulthood, this time of life that we've gone through childhood and youth. Childhood is in the East, and it's a place of openness and opportunity, and then youth is in the South, and it's a place of kind of fiery expansion into self. And then the West is adulthood, which is represented by water. And water here teaches about flow and reflection, a lot of reflective qualities in adulthood, and also dissolving of rigid boundaries as we enter into this season of meeting the other and not being so self-contained. So I see the season's connection to water in the medicine wheel as highlighting Libra's role as a mirror and a recalibrating and responding and balancing time that is really in response to emotional currents. So the West also is representative of emotionality, and whereas, we move from, we have physicality and in the East, and that's about coming into your physical body, I would say, learning about the physical world around you, your physical limitations. Childhood is a very physical time. And then youth in the wheel that I am familiar with is associated with the mental realm, learning a lot of new things, taking your mind online, connecting with other people through a mental process. And then the West is emotionality, and the North is spiritual. And the North is associated with elderhood and winter and that time of life where we turn to more spirituality. And so looking at these kind of conditions of life and these parts of life that are represented by each direction of the medicine wheel has been really fascinating for me. And especially looking at adulthood as emotional, because it didn't always quite click. But for me, the emotional medicine of this season really lies in the recognition that harmony can't be forced, and that it is all about a give and take and a cooperation and collaboration. So, if you have stagnant water, it is reflective perhaps, but it also can accumulate imbalance because the emotions need to be in movement. Water needs to be moving and emotions need to be in motion. And so when they're kind of stagnated or stifled to preserve appearances, it can lead to imbalance. But when the water is flowing and emotions are moving, emotions are really just energy in motion. And so when emotions are flowing, um, it can be like that cleansing, detoxifying type of stream that restores equilibrium and restores balance through allowing for the intake and the outtake of emotionality of our feelings as they arise, and having the maturity to do so, right? It's a season of maturity, of being reflective and then letting the emotions flow through, letting them go. And so the direction west here really just teaches that having balance in relationship with others really requires attending to these currents of emotions. And again, it's about that discerning quality that came in Virgo season, which is also in the West. And so it's about kind of discerning when to stand firm and when to yield and when to let something go. So that quality of Virgo kind of edges into Libra, where it's like balancing our sovereignty with our service to others and with our the complexity of what it means to be in relationship with larger communities, with children, with people of many generations. So it's a beautiful season to be starting this, starting to dive into it a little deeper. Moving on to the 5 element cycle, the wuxing cycle, that's from ancient China and Taoist tradition. In the 5 element cycle, this season of fall in earnest, is the element metal. We just came out of this transitional element of earth after the summer season of fire. So we went from fire in Leo season to earth in Virgo season. And earth is really just a transition of late summer. And then you get into fall, and we are in the phase of metal in this 5 phase cycle. And in all of these phases of the wuxing cycle, the whole point here is that none of them are just individual and distinct elements, but the cycle is all about how they lead to one another, how they change and shift into one another. So we start with the element wood in the spring, and around Imbolc, around the cross quarter day of Imbolc in the pagan wheel of the year, which is before the spring equinox. I would say that's around the time that wood starts to emerge, and that's like the sprouting up of a tree, the sprouting up of a new plant going upward. And then we move into fire from wood, and that's when summer starts to heat up, and you feel the kind of the burning of that wood, the flaming, the branching outward. So there's kind of the upward growth and then the outward growth. And then so wood turns into fire, and then fire burns down into ashes and becomes the earth. And that's the kind of slowing down season of the harvest and post-harvest, of things kind of starting to settle. And then within the earth, we have metal. There's metal ore that exists within the earth. There's a calcification. Earth becomes solidified and strengthened, and that's where we are now in the fall, in the season of metal. And then on the metal, water condenses, and so it rises out of the metal season, and water is the winter season of more fluidity and softness and inwardness. And then from water, wood arises again. And so there's this beautiful interconnected cycle of elements within the wuxing cycle. And being in this kind of entering into metal right now, it's all about refinement. It's all about we went through an earth phase, which was late summer, and that was kind of a balancing, a centering. It was very nourishing time. Earth is all about integration and groundedness and nourishment. And I just think of the bounty of harvest season being like earth season, nourishing us and helping us feel very taken care of. And then after that, as we turn towards the darker months of the darker nights, the cycle turns toward refinement, and we see that what's been gathered in the late summer now needs to be sorted and stored, put on those Libra scales and weighed out, and prepared to either be let go or to be shipped off or to be stored for later. And so metal in this way represents discernment and clarity and letting go. And it's really a force that distinguishes what is essential from what is excess, and what can be preserved from what has to be shed. So, the air is turning crisp this time of year, leaves are falling from the trees, and the trees are saying, hey, I don't have energy to hold on to these forever. It's time to let them go. So there's a discerning quality that is within this metal season of fall. And metal is associated with contraction. After an expansively abundant season of spring and summer, we have to kind of now, in this season of metal, condense into essence, the way that the ash from the fire turns into the earth and then condenses into ore over a lot of time. In the 5 element system of Chinese medicine, metal is associated with the lungs, and the large intestine. And the lungs are all about purity and vitality, bringing in fresh air, and the large intestine's about releasing waste and releasing stagnation. And so metal in this way related to these body parts is kind of capturing a role as having judgment surrounding like what we value and what we're bringing in and also what we're releasing. So there's a certain surrender and a certain refinement to this element. Metals related to the emotion grief and reverence as well. It's honoring those two emotions in this kind of distilling way of like identifying what it is that needs to be said and done in a pretty clear way. So in this way, metal is also teaching us about integrity, which is, yeah, again, the ability to uphold what is precious and to let go of what is not. So as we pass from earth to metal, as we're in this transitionary time now, as the air gets crisper here in Santa Fe, where I am at least, but around the Northern Hemisphere, this season is really offering us wisdom of boundaries, of not being afraid of our emotions, but of distilling into the essence of what is true and being a little more precise about how our energy is being used. So the life cycle is really pairing back to essentials right now as the plants are dropping their unessential parts and getting back to the bare bones structure of their skeletons, really preparing us for the stillness of winter. And so as the plants are doing this, as the earth is doing this process, we can do that as well. Just start to honor grief and reverence, distill what's important, let go of what's not serving us, just become a little bit more calcified and clarified without rigidity, just figuring out what is important at this time. All right, so this is my first time doing a zodiac recording, and we're on to the hour mark, and I had a pretty long intro, so just checking my timing. Thanks for sticking around and learning all about Libra season. I'd love your comments if you're reading this on Substack. I'd love to hear like your thoughts about how these different things correlate with your experience of Libra season or Libra people that you meet in the past. So drop me a line. I'm always available, on Substack or anywhere that you're listening to podcasts. I'd love to hear from you. But moving on to the pagan wheel of the year, we are in celebrating Mabon, which is the fall equinox in the Northern Hemisphere. And Mabon is a modern festival that celebrates the equinox. Many cultures throughout the globe have celebrated the fall equinox as an important day, of course. Mabon is a little more of a recent addition with that name to the pagan wheel of the year. It's not as ancient as some of the other holy days like Yule and Samhain and Lammas, for example, but it is celebrated by modern Wiccans and pagans, and it honors this really pivotal, important time in the Wheel of the Year, this balance point right on the cusp of Virgo and Libra that we celebrated on September 22nd. And so this is, known as the Festival of the Second Harvest, and celebrated around September 21st to 23rd each year. The Mabon celebration marks the moment in the Wheel of the Year when the day and night stand in equal measure and the sun descends into the darker half of the year. So the first harvest festival in the pagan wheel is called Lammas, and that was in Leo season, and that honored the first fruits of the harvest. And Mabon is a celebration of the full ripeness of the season and the deep work of gathering and preserving and preparing for winter. So Mabon, similarly to other kind of elements that I've talked about so far, is a time of completion and gratitude. reverence again, if you will. This is the time when, in much of the north in Europe, especially, the fields and orchards and gardens are giving their last big offerings, like apples and nuts and root vegetables, before the fields lie fallow for the winter. And there is a third harvest festival, but that is more kind of the final harvest. And so this one is like the big, lots of apples right now. Peach season is over, but apple season is in full force where I am, and so it feels very resonant. So this is a critical harvest festival that determined really how well ancient people could endure the lean months ahead. And in modern Wiccan and Celtic inspired traditions, the festival takes its name from the Welsh mythic figure Mabon ap Modron, who is the son of the Great Mother, which is a symbol of light held in the embrace of darkness. In Welsh mythology, Mabon ap Modron is a divine youth stolen from his mother, the Great Mother goddess Modron, just 3 days after his birth. Later, he was rescued by heroes, and is associated with the sun's light returning from captivity and the vitality of youth and the turning of seasons. So again, this isn't too ancient of an association to this festival, but a lot of modern, I think it was in the last century that this has been associated with this figure, this mythic figure from Wales. But his story really reflects the equinox theme of light held in balance with darkness, and is also a reminder that what is lost can be restored, and that cycles of descent are always followed by renewal. So Mabon ap Modron is about holding that balance point and having hope for the returning of the light, even as we know we're starting to descend into the darkness. So in pagan celebrations, Mabon is marked with feasts and gatherings and offerings. Fresh pressed cider, I think of this time of year, is really important with all the apples, wine, fresh bread. All of these beautiful harvest gatherings are shared in thanks to the land, and this is a time to honor the gods and the spirits of the harvest and make offerings to them with grain or fruit or libations as acts of this reciprocity and this collaborative nature of Libra season. In many places, this is a season of winemaking and cider pressing and storing food, making preserves and jams and jellies and kimchis, and I'm not sure about that, but yeah, preserved food for the months ahead. So if you are feeling like celebrating, yeah, making some preserves, making some cider, making some wine, putting things into a sustainable quality of preserving the food is a great thing to do right about now. And I'm excited it feels just so right this time of year to start doing that in a ritualistic way. So, just as the sun stands poised before tipping into longer nights at this season of Mabon, we're asked to consider where we are in balance and where we are not so calibrated, where we've tipped too far in one direction or another. So this eclipse season was also about shedding and releasing things that weren't serving and welcoming what was new. And so hopefully that gave us a little bit of a head start into the equinox, as eclipse season ended right as the equinox arrived. And so hopefully, yeah, we have a little bit of insight into what makes us feel balanced. And if not, hopefully this time of year can allow us to contemplate these things, about how to hold both, light and dark in the same hand, and just know that light and dark aren't enemies, but they're necessary halves of the same whole, and endings are simply beginnings in another form. So this week of Mabon, if you're listening to this, as we enter the equinox period, think about balance. Ask about the abundance that you're ready to harvest from the past 6 months, and acknowledge what you've learned and what you've gained over that time. And ask what still needs to be gathered before the final harvest. So Samhain or Halloween is the final harvest festival. And that is a time when, so in between this harvest festival and that one, we can continue to actively harvest the things from the living time of year, um, the spring and summer that are relevant. So that is Mabon. That is the fall equinox and the pagan wheel of the year. Moving on to the human design wheel and the I Ching mandala. There is a sequence of 6 gates in human design that are drawn from the hexagrams of the I Ching, and this sequence of gates goes through Libra season. And so I'll tell you a little bit of a story about that, as it forms a narrative of embodiment and critique and depth and instinct and survival and shared values. It's really about balance, as you might imagine, in different kinds of ways. And so we move from the determination of the self, gate 46, is where we are now, which is about embodiment through experience, where the body leads the way. And then we move into gate 18, which is called correction. Then gate 48, known as the well, which is the depth of wisdom. Gate 57, intuition, is next. After that, it's continuity. And then the final gate, that is the cusp between Libra and Scorpio season, is known as the gate of values or the cauldron, kind of this vessel that holds all of the information of relationality of the tribe all together in a bubbling cauldron as we enter Scorpio season. So I will tell you a little story here. And again, this is an experiment. If this episode is going on too long, or if it's feeling like it wants to be different, please, I appreciate feedback. Because I'm loving talking about Libra in this full fractally kind of way. But sometimes I'm just curious what people's attention spans are. We just have this section left, and then also planetary dances, the astrological transits, and then that'll be it. So I think we're good. But let me tell you about Libra season through the lens of the I Ching and the human design gates that are encompassed within this season. So as the sun moves into Libra, as it did a couple days ago on September 22nd, the sun enters gate 46, which is known as determination of the self, or embodiment, or serendipity. And so this is the equinox gate that brings day and night into equal measure. And at this moment in time, according to the I Ching and human design, the equinox energy is about how balance is felt through the body itself, and that harmony and relationality begins in the simple act of being alive and being in a body. And the gate across the sky, the spring equinox gate, is gate 25, which is known as the spirit of the self, or the gate of spirit. And that is a gate where it is all about connecting with kind of something higher, like in an innocent way, being like transcendent from the body. Whereas 46 is all about embodiment. It's all about having determination to use our bodies to get ahead in life, to delight in what it feels like to be in a body. So that is where Libra season begins. And then from this point, from gate 46, the path leads to gate 18, which is the gate of correction. And here the light sharpens and shadows lengthen and flaws become visible. At this point in the wheel of the year, the Libran scales kind of turn to what has been spoiled, and they weigh distortion against integrity. In the I Ching, this is known as tend to what has been spoiled. And so once we've settled into our body's wisdom, we're able to have this discriminatory quality of correcting and judging, as Libra is associated with justice and the scales of justice and judging. So judgment could arise at this time, but there's a deeper call, which is renewal, which is mending what has become spoiled and restoring it to right proportion. So that gate really ties into that recalibration process of Libra season, of kind of always looking for what could be corrected. And after that, we move into gate 48, the gate of depth. And the gate of depth is also known as the well. And the well is a kind of quiet wisdom. It's a hidden beneath the earth. And when we choose to draw down into this well of wisdom, we are met with profound truths. Um, we can't stay on the surface any longer. So, I see it as the first gate is about embodiment. The second gate is about honoring judgment as a way of knowing, as we're relating more with other people, as we're building out this relational quality of Libra season. The tendency to want to correct will come through, and then we deepen even further into those relationships, and kind of allow ourselves to find resourcefulness when we go deeper into that process. Then we have gate 57 after that, which is intuitive clarity. And this is as kind of middle point through Libra season, where it can feel like we have a deeper intuition about what is true in the present moment, and kind of trusting the whisper from the larger world that allows us to find balance within ourselves as we deepen into relationships with other people. So again, it's kind of like trust your body, number one, then, oh, correct what's going wrong, number two, then three, oh, now we're ready to go deeper, then four, it's like, oh, all that depth is making me more clear about myself. Every gate of the season kind of goes in this yin yang, kind of inward, outward type of flow. And I've noticed this throughout all of the gates around the mandala, is that they tend to respond to the one that came before and give rise to the one that comes after. So after intuitive clarity comes gate 32, the gate of continuity, which is all about perseverance, endurance, knowing what types of relationships, what types of qualities have strength to last, and what can be carried forward through time. So it is all about recognizing, what is worth preserving as we make our jars of jelly and preserves in this Libra season. We recognize through the process of going deeper with others and correcting what needs to be corrected, recalibrating that continuity, some things are meant to endure. And finally, the last gate in the season is gate 50, the gate of values, also known as the cauldron in the I Ching. And this is that cauldron that holds all the values of the relationships that we've decided should endure, through deciding what we need to let go and filtering out what needs to go back to the earth, and what things are going to come with us and be preserved and stay with us and sustain us and nurture us through the colder months. So gate 50 is this cauldron of all the values that we've picked from ourselves, from our community, from our relationships, put them into a cauldron. And here Libra is really the steward, tending that fire, stirring that cauldron, making sure it doesn't get too still, maintaining the equilibrium and the balance between this melting pot. But gate 50, this cauldron gate, is on the cusp of Scorpio season, and Scorpio is, as opposed to Libra, which is about balancing and recalibrating, Scorpio is all about merging and composting and getting deeper involved. And so I look at like these other gates within Libra season as kind of Yeah, a little bit more 'cause things are still separate. They're way we're deepening into relationality with the world, but we're also kind of making sure that we're touching back in with our own sovereignty and our own intuition, our own clarity, our own embodied wisdom. But when you get to the cauldron, it's kind of like, all right, here we go. We're going, we've descended, we're into the merging with others. And so the shadow of this one, which I haven't really talked about here, I'm gonna do a separate episode about this story arc that includes the shadows and gifts and a little bit more insight about how to work with them. But at its basic, the shadow here is corruption when we don't take responsibility for what is added into the cauldron, and then it kind of can corrupt the whole brew. But in the gift level, it is equilibrium, where it's a beautifully balanced tea or beautifully balanced soup that has all of the necessary ingredients that are from us and those that we're in relationship with, and is able to distribute nourishment fairly and really hold harmony as the shared value. So that's the human design arc. It's always fascinating to look at that. And these are the gates that I'll be going into on a week by week basis, as along with their polarity, their opposite side of the wheel, to kind of provide a way that we can integrate those polarities and really have a greater understanding of these energies. But that is a pretty cool flow. It's all about balance, not being frozen in time, not perfection, the living art of equilibrium, where it's embodied, corrected, deepened, intuited, preserved, and then offered back to the whole. So, those were some words I wrote relating to the gates. And yeah, it's the living art of Libra. Finally, moving into the planetary dances of Libra season, the astrological transits. We're not going to go too far into them, but here's the basics, here's the lowdown. September 22nd, the Sun entered Libra, Mars entered Scorpio, and the equinox opened up Libra season, moment of equal day and light, this ongoing dance between light and shadow. On that same day of the equinox, Mars came into Scorpio, which is where Mars is at home. Mars loves to be in Scorpio. The intensity of both of those it's a good place, but immediately Mars squared Pluto as soon as it entered Scorpio. So that beautiful at-home nature of intensity and desire that we're experiencing the beginning of Libra season, a certain strategic, a certain activation, a certain depth and power that Mars and Scorpio brings was squared off by Pluto. And Mars square Pluto is a bit of a tense aspect, a bit of friction that could bring power struggles to the surface. So if you're listening to this as I post it on September 24th or 25th, that is still active, and power struggles might be coming up. So just take care of yourself and breathe before you speak and act, I'd say. That same day, the sun is trining Pluto. So, um, the sun just entered Libra. Pluto's at the first degree of Aquarius. And so we have this air sign trine where there might be a certain empowerment of clarity and transformation coming through. So a lot of Pluto activations in this early part of Libra season. On October 6th, moving into the month of October, we have a full moon in Aries, which is in gate 21, known as the Hunter or the Huntress. And so that highlights the opposition between Aries, the independent nature of Aries, and the relational nature of Libra. In human design, the gate where this full moon is, gate 21, is about control and management and sovereignty, kind of asking who holds the reins. So this full moon of this Libra season might stir up some contemplations and confrontations around independence and and how we're resourced and who's in charge, who holds the reins, and it might kind of just bring up how we hold balance when something that is trying to control us is asserting its power. Mercury enters Scorpio on that same day. It, our communication will move from kind of a more diplomatic and tactful quality to a more probing and investigative and deep quality around the same time as the full moon. Then on October 13th, a week later, Venus enters Libra, where Venus is at home. Venus loves being in Libra. And on that same day, Pluto is stationing direct in Aquarius. So when Venus comes home to Libra, it feels like a softening, that harmonious balance, connection, beauty, a lot of good relational energy with an emphasis on fairness and reciprocity. And then at the same time, Pluto is going to turn direct in Aquarius after being retrograde for quite some time. And so the collective transformation of Pluto in Aquarius will kind of get kick-started up again, so where we might see structures of power shifting, kind of some tension between the individual and the group, between traditional structures and what needs to emerge in the new Aquarian age. So there's on October 13th, around there, there's a recalibration surrounding love and harmony and power. And so it's kind of an activating time. On October 21st, the day before Scorpio season begins, we have a new moon in Libra, and that is in gate 50, the cauldron that I just talked about, the gate of values. And so this is a closing, kind of like a planting a seed, new moon that closes Libra season with a renewal of what we value. Really planting seeds about our shared values and how we come into values with each other. And so, yeah, this Gate 50 really invites us to reflect on our collective values, our collective responsibility, and mutual aid, and how we care for each other. So, yeah, this cauldron kind of transforms all the raw ingredients or all the different kind of pieces of individual values into a sense of shared values and nourishment for everyone. So we can ask ourselves on that lunation, what agreements, principles, and responsibilities do we choose to carry forward into the dark half of the year? Finally, October 22nd is when Scorpio enters the scene, the sun enters Scorpio, and on that same day, Neptune is retrograding back into Pisces. So Neptune is pretty at home in Pisces, but it might kind of blur the edges of reality a little bit. Neptune's been in Aries, and after this retrograde back into Pisces, will be in Aries for the next 11 years or so. So this last dip into Pisces is a time when we can really kind of get a final sense about how our dreams and our spiritual longings are connected to the bigger picture, but it might feel a little bit dissolving quality where we are, yeah, kind of really taken back into the sea for a moment, a little bit of confusion around that time. So, with the sun entering Scorpio, Scorpio is also kind of, Neptune is the sea, Pisces is the sea, and Scorpio is the like underground, underworld lakes about depth and collective shadow, collective intensity. So we'll be in it. I feel like Scorpio season up ahead is the season of the true underworld and the beautiful lessons we can learn from looking beneath the surface. And Neptune and re-entering Pisces right at that same time, to me, feels like it's going to be a time of deep subconscious work and transformation over Scorpio season. So while we're here in Libra season, I would say it's a time to be alert. It's a time to dance, to stay on your toes, be in your body, relish in the delight of the last moments of sun before it gets darker. Spend some time out soaking the sun into yourself and just remember that justice is a process of continual recalibration, and our values have to be tended and cultivated, kind of like that warm brew bubbling in a heavy cauldron. So, yeah, it's a season of tending, preserving, making things with your hands, dancing, enjoying the fruits of the harvest. So have a beautiful, beautiful Libra season ahead. And be sure to find me at cyclesoftime.substack.com on Substack or anywhere you listen to podcasts for these. And next Wednesday, I do have a Libra season breathwork journey happening. You can sign up on my website at astrosomatics.com. I also have just published a human design learning and oracle deck that is a really fun way to learn about all of these different 64 gates and hexagrams and gene keys. And so you can also pre order that on my website. So check out astrosomatics.com. And I will see you again soon. Thanks for being here.